September 26th, 1983, shortly after midnight. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov sits in a bunker south of Moscow. A red light begins flashing on the screen in front of him, then another, then three more. 5 in total. The alarm screams. The computer says it's certain. American nuclear missiles are headed toward the Soviet Union. He has minutes to decide, minutes to tell his superiors, minutes before the world ends. Petrov is 44 years old. He spent his career monitoring satellites. Tonight, he's the duty officer at Serpukhov 15, a secret command center built deep underground. Above him, the Cold War is at its coldest point in decades. 3 weeks earlier, Soviet fighters shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007. 269 people died. President Reagan called the Soviets an evil empire. The Kremlin believes America is preparing for war. Everyone is on edge. Everyone is afraid. The system tracking the missiles is called Oko. It's new. It uses satellites to detect rocket launches from space. When it sees heat signatures, it calculates trajectory. Tonight, Oko is screaming that 5 Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missiles have launched from American soil. 5 missiles streaking through the darkness toward Soviet cities. The protocol is clear. Petrov must report this immediately to his superiors. They will wake General Secretary Yuri Andropov. Andropov will have minutes to decide whether to launch a counterattack. The Soviet doctrine is simple. If America strikes first, respond with everything. Thousands of warheads. Mutual assured destruction. Petrov stares at the screen. His heart is pounding. The alarm continues to wail. His subordinates look at him, waiting for orders. Everything in his training tells him to pick up the phone. But something feels wrong. He asks himself a question. If America wanted to start a nuclear war, would they launch only 5 missiles? The United States has thousands of warheads. They have bombers. They have submarines. If this was a real first strike, the sky would be full of missiles. Hundreds of them, not 5. The minutes tick by. The system still says the missiles are coming. Petrov makes his decision. He picks up the phone. He calls his superiors at Soviet Army headquarters. His voice is steady. He tells them the system has malfunctioned. He tells them it's a false alarm. He does not recommend retaliation. The officer on the other end is skeptical. The computers are certain, he says. The satellites detected the launches, but Petrov holds firm. Something is wrong with Oko, he insists. This cannot be real. 23 minutes pass, the longest 23 minutes of Petrov's life. If the missiles were real, they would have hit by now. Moscow would be burning, Leningrad would be ash, but nothing happens. The screens go quiet, the alarm stops. Petrov was right. It was a false alarm. The system had detected sunlight reflecting off clouds, high-altitude clouds over North Dakota. The satellites mistook the reflection for missile exhaust, a trick of light, a glitch in the software, an error that nearly ended human civilization. Petrov does not go home that night feeling like a hero. He goes home feeling sick. His hands shake for hours. He realizes how close they came, how thin the thread was between peace and annihilation. One decision, one man who trusted his instinct over a machine. If someone else had been sitting in that chair, someone more trusting of technology, someone more afraid of disobeying protocol, the call would have been different. The Soviet leadership would have launched. America would have detected the launch and fired everything. Within 90 minutes, 3 billion people would have been dead. The rest would have followed in the weeks after, from radiation from starvation, from nuclear winter. The Soviet military does not thank Petrov. They do not reward him. Instead, they reprimand him. His paperwork from that night was incomplete, they say. He didn't follow proper procedure. He made a decision without authorization. The commanders are embarrassed that their new system failed. They want the incident buried. Petrov is quietly reassigned. He suffers a nervous breakdown months later. He retires early in 1984. For years, almost no one knows what he did. Meanwhile, in Washington, no one knows how close they came. President Reagan has no idea that Soviet satellites nearly triggered World War III. The incident remains classified in Moscow. The world keeps spinning. The arms race continues. By 1984, the Soviet Union has over 39,000 nuclear warheads. The United States has 23,000, enough to destroy the Earth several times over. Both sides keep building more. The threat never goes away. In 1998, Petrov's former commander, Yuri Votintsev, publishes his memoirs. In them, he reveals the incident. He describes a night in September 1983, a false alarm, a duty officer who refused to report it. The story begins to spread slowly. A few historians take note, but it's not until 2004 that Petrov receives any recognition. The Association of World Citizens gives him an award. They call him the man who saved the world. Petrov is uncomfortable with the title. He doesn't see himself as a hero. He was just doing his job, he says. Anyone would have done the same. But that's not true. Most people would have followed the protocol. Most people would have trusted the machine. In 2006, a documentary crew finds Petrov. They bring him to the United Nations. They want him to speak at a screening in New York. Petrov has never been to America. He's never left Russia. He's nervous. But he goes. When he arrives, people thank him. Strangers shake his hand. They tell him they're alive because of him. Their children are alive because of him. Petrov smiles, but he doesn't quite believe it. He still sees himself as an ordinary man who made a judgment call. The full details of that night are now known. Soviet records confirm everything. The Oko system detected what it thought were 5 missile launches. The probability assessment was marked as highest reliability. Every technical indicator said the attack was real. If Petrov had followed procedure, the Soviet leadership would have received a report recommending immediate retaliation. Given the political climate in September 1983, given the paranoia and the recent downing of the Korean airliner, the chances of them launching a counterattack were high. Historians now believe Petrov's decision prevented a full-scale nuclear war. What's remarkable is that Petrov wasn't a general. He wasn't a politician. He was a middle-ranking officer who happened to be on duty that night. He had no special authority. He could have been overruled at any moment, but in that critical window, the decision was his, and he made it based not on data or protocol, but on intuition, on the simple logic that an attack didn't make sense, on the belief that a machine could be wrong. After the Cold War ended, the Soviet command system was declassified. Analysts studied how close the world came to disaster. They found other incidents, other false alarms. In 1979, a training tape was accidentally loaded into U.S. systems. For 6 minutes, American officers believed Soviet missiles were incoming. In 1980, a faulty computer chip made U.S. systems report a massive attack. In 1995, Russian radars detected a Norwegian research rocket and mistook it for a missile. President Boris Yeltsin had the nuclear briefcase opened for the first time in Russian history. These were the moments that almost ended everything. Most of them are still not widely known. Petrov died on May 19, 2017. He was 77. His death went unreported for months. When a friend finally tried to reach him, they discovered he'd been buried quietly. No state funeral, no military honors, just a small grave outside Moscow. When the news finally broke, people around the world mourned him. They called him the most important person you've never heard of, the man whose name should be taught in every school. There's an irony in Petrov's story. He saved the world by refusing to trust a machine. But today, we trust machines more than ever. Algorithms make decisions for us. Artificial intelligence analyzes threats. Automated systems control weapons. We're building a world where human judgment is seen as the weakness, not the strength, where the goal is to remove emotion, to remove hesitation, to remove doubt. We call it efficiency, we call it precision. But on September 26, 1983, those human qualities, doubt and hesitation, saved 3 billion lives. Petrov never wanted to be famous. He spent his final years in poverty, largely forgotten. But every person alive today owes him something. Every child born after 1983 exists because one man, in one moment, chose to trust his gut over a computer screen, chose to question certainty, chose to wait. The Cold War is over, but nuclear weapons remain. Thousands of them still on high alert, still capable of ending civilization in an afternoon. The systems monitoring them are more sophisticated now. The satellites are better. The algorithms are faster. But mistakes still happen. Misunderstandings still occur. And somewhere, right now, someone is sitting in a bunker, watching screens, waiting for an alarm that might never come, or might come tonight. Stanislav Petrov showed us something essential in a world of absolutes, of binary choices and instant decisions. The most important thing a human being can do is pause, to question, to think. Not because we distrust technology, but because we understand its limits, because we know that machines see data, but only people see context. Only people see consequences. Only people understand what it means to be wrong. On September 26, 1983, the world didn't end, not because of diplomacy, not because of treaties, but because one man refused to make the easy choice. And because of that, the sun rose the next morning, and every morning since.